Let's talk about hormones. So bringing back my experience, I did not have a cycle for 2 years on the vegan diet. So probably because the diet was not supportive for my hormones, I was not eating enough nutrients. So when I went carnivore, the cycle came back, but also my body started regulating. So how do hormones impact one's body's response to food, to calories?
Hormones are everything. Basically, hormones determine what your body is doing metabolically, whether you're building up, whether you're breaking down, whether you have enough estrogen, whether you don't have enough estrogen. And on a vegan diet, you will not have enough estrogen because there is not enough fat in that diet.
Yes.
Estrogen is based on fat. Estrogen is actually based on the cholesterol molecule. So if you're eating a low-fat, cholesterol-avoiding diet, you are asking for an estrogen problem. And if you've got vastly, grossly reduced estrogen, then you're going to get things like the cessation of your menstrual cycle. You're going to get skin conditions. You're going to get a problem maintaining strength and muscle mass. You're going to get osteoporosis if you do it for enough years. It's really, really important to follow your biological imperative, your species-appropriate, species-specific diet. There's no question whatsoever that the appropriate diet for human beings is obligate hypercarnivore, meaning, in effect, 80% of your food intake and above should be the flesh and fat of animals, preferably large ruminant animals and other things mixed in as less common. But the basis is around the large ruminants, cows, sheep. Pork's fine. I know pork's not a ruminant, but it's another good option as well. And then seafood and poultry as your sort of other occasional things that are thrown in. It's appropriately low in carbohydrate. It will support your hormonal balances. It will support your body systems, your metabolic system, into knowing that it has everything it needs and doing what it's programmed to do. You're not getting in its way. You're not tripping over your feet anymore. And that's why everything came right for you when you went back to your species appropriate diet. It's as simple as that.
So you mentioned the term hypercarnivore. So when you say 80% animal foods, preferably ruminants, what can the 20% be made up of?
There is a variability in the human genome and in our history for how much non-animal products were consumed. Largely that 20% was typically in the form of very, very fibrous, usually tubers. They were nothing like the ones we've got now, because the ones we've got now are all selectively bred for. Like sweet potatoes now contain much more starch than they ever did. They were long, thin, spindly, very much more fibrous things originally, as were potatoes, all of those kind of things. So that 20% that humans were eating for the last 350,000 years or so, that was not animal material, was also not material that's going to dump glucose into your bloodstream. It was not starches, it was not sugars. It certainly wasn't fruit, and certainly not the kind of fruit we have now, which is much more sweet. Again, it's been selectively bred for over generations. Fruit was bitter, fibrous, tough, nasty stuff, and it was only available for most human beings 2 weeks a year, right before the winter, actually, when the effect of the fruit was to fatten us up for the winter. So that fibrous stuff is broken down only in the large colon, and only by a particular species or group of species of bacteria that live with us that are capable of fermenting some of the fiber and producing short-chain fatty acids for us, not carbohydrates, not glucose. So in effect, our diet for the last 350,000 years, bar about the last 8,000 years, okay? In the last 8,000 years, the agrarian revolution, we added all these plants and we started to grow grains for crops. We started to eat all this plant material. We started to selectively breed plants to make them more edible, basically. And that's been disastrous for us, actually, absolutely disastrous for us as a species. But previous to sort of from 8,000 years ago back to 350, everything we ate broke down to protein, amino acids, or fatty acids in our bodies. There was no carbohydrate to speak of at all. And that's what is appropriate for human beings.